What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Mike Dolce Show. Today, we're doing something a little bit different here. I'm going to call this a debate show because there needs to be a conversation. Now, Dr. Andy Galpin is someone I normally like. Andy. I think I like Andy. You know, we'll see. Maybe by the time this conversation is over, maybe we don't like each other as much as we thought we did. And even during the intro, I might like Andy Galpin a little less. Now, Andy Galpin holds a PhD in human bioenergetics and an MS in human movement sciences. I mean, you want to talk about an overachiever. I mean, come on, dude. He's a full professor at Cal State Fullerton and the director of the Center for Sports Performance. Like, can he even do all of this stuff at a high level? I mean, it sounds like he's spread a little too thin here, by the way. Now, Galpin does research and teaches in the areas of muscle physiology, strength and conditioning, and performance nutrition. And he even works with professional athletes in the MLB, MMA, boxing, wrestling, and more. The next thing we're going to hear Galpin say is like he trains Tony Stark, maybe, and the whole Marvel DC universe. So I'm going to call a little bit of BS on Galpin right now, just out of the gate. I'm full guns blazing here on the dude. And let's bring him on the show and let's see what he has to say for himself. Whoa, Dr. Galpin, how are you, sir?
I'm busy on Instagram. I'll get back to you when I feel like it.
Are you busy clickbaiting these videos you've been putting out? Totally like making up nonsense, I believe. And my hypothesis is you do not want your followers to actually make gains, which is why you're throwing this bro science out there. And I am going to challenge you on that today, here on this show.
Well, I have it on good authority that Mike Dolce has never won a single fight in his life. So I've got a lot of confidence right now.
That is marginally true. In fourth grade, I actually did sucker punch the girl in front of me in the lunch line, and she didn't hit back because I ran away too fast. So
that makes sense.
We'll call that a draw. Now, the point of this conversation, and due to the wonderful world of internet, we'll call it internet, I actually have you right here on camera making up complete falsehoods. Let's go to the video here for a moment. Now, Dr. Galpin, this right there clearly illustrates you do not want us to make gains because you said the goal is a caloric surplus, but don't double your calories or triple your calories and thereby tripling our gains. As every gym bro knows, man, to beat the man, you must out-eat the man, from the great J.M. Blakely. And here you are contradicting yourself in the very same statement. So please explain to us exactly what the doctor calls a caloric surplus.
First of all, I'm not sure how you are going to convince your audience that that's even me. That gentleman, as good looking guy as he was, looks nothing like me. And he clearly had a Hispanic accent that I don't have. So, but whatever, I'll take the lead.
That is a mugshot if I ever saw one. You are guilty, my friend.
Yeah.
Borderline friend, we'll have to say.
Well, okay, I guess I'll start here. I have to admit I did lie in that video just a touch.
True.
So if you want to gain more muscle, then I was probably wrong there. You should probably eat more than a 10 or 15, maybe 20% surplus. So if you truly want to maximize the amount of muscle you grow, then I would encourage you to eat as many calories as humanly possible. Yeah, I mean, triple, quadruple, 10x your calories.
Yes, yes. Now we're talking. I knew it. Off the teleprompter. The truth comes out.
Having said that, the vast majority of us, I assume, want to gain mostly lean mass. And so that's when the numbers I suggested, somewhere between 10 to 15, maybe even as high as 20%, are going to help you gain the most amount of muscle while preserving some of your fat gains or minimizing the fat gains. We still need a lot of research in this area. There's only been a handful of studies. So this could change. And in fact, I do have some colleagues doing some studies I know in this area looking to see where this line ends and changes. So we'll have more information in a handful of years. But having said that, if you want to gain just the absolute amount of muscle total period, and you're fine with half of that coming from fat, then by all means, eat pizza all day, if that's what you want to get after. But that's not really what I'm interested in. I'm pretty sure I'm pretty close to the physical peak of what a human could do in terms of growing muscle anyways.
You are yoked.
But for the rest of you schmucks, if you want to gain mostly lean muscle, then I would keep the calories in check a little bit there.
And to touch on that, what would you call a caloric surplus in the confines of this conversation? We want to make lean gains have enough calories to fuel those workouts, to facilitate muscle growth, but not so much that we spill over.
Yeah, so there's going to be some spillover. So you're not going to put on 12 pounds of muscle and 0 fat.
What if we're on trenbolone?
I should have qualified. Correct again.
Okay, fair enough.
Round 1, Dolce. Yes, so we want to, the 3 things we want to get after. We want to be able to fuel our training appropriately to get the right stimulus for the muscle growth. Number 2, we need to be able to recover from that. And then number 3, we need to be able to put ourselves in a situation where we have an appropriate energy management so that you're not just feeling terrible all day or having problems with sleep. Because we do see this, if people screw with their diet too much, if it influences your sleep, then this is going to then play back on the growth. So as long as those things are appropriate, so caloric surplus is the amount of extra calories you need above your maintenance. So if you say train for 2 weeks, like you normally train, and everything else is somewhat stable, and you eat 2,000 calories. And if you eat 2,000 calories and you keep training, your body weight and your body composition doesn't change for 2 or 3 weeks. Then we would call that your maintenance number. There's lots of ways you can Google online, estimate calculators, and then you can add in correction factors for being more physically active or less physically active. And you can get a ballpark, or you can get this tested in a lab scientifically. Either way, that'll give you a rough number. Or honestly, the way I do it is just check your body comp for a few weeks and your performance and all that stuff. And are you feeling pretty great? We call that maintenance. Now you want to add whatever that number was. If that number was 2,000 calories, now let's add our 15%. And go from there. So I would say that 15 is probably the number that I shoot for, honestly, more than 10%. If you take that 2,000 number, 10% is 200 extra calories. I mean, that's an apple and some walnut, like some nuts. That's not very many extra calories. It's a spoonful more.
These nuts?
Yeah. Any nuts, really.
Oh, all right. My wife will be happy.
So I think, honestly, 15 is a better number. 20, actually, we don't have good data on 20 or even 25, but I think 20 would be fine. You start getting past that, though, and now you're starting to add whole huge meals or big chunks. You're going nuts. Then you're probably going to start seeing some of those problems again, either sleep issues, potentially energy issues throughout the day, discomfort, total disdain for eating. I mean, you've done this. I know I've been there too, where you're just like, you're sitting there and it's lunch, it's your 3rd meal or whatever, and you're just like, fuck me, like I do not want to eat. Yeah. And you're like, I got to do this 6 more times today. Yeah. Like, that's probably not needed for most people. So
now, when you talk about adding calories, are we adding protein? And that will lead me into the next debate point, the next BS that I'm calling on you here, Dr. Galpin.
So can we confirm, by the way, it scores 1-0 Dolce?
I think we're 5-0. We're pitching a shutout over here. You're just not aware of it yet. You don't see the scoreboard. I have it over here. The fix is in.
It's my dating life too. Just shut up. Didn't even realize it.
Exactly. It's going on. Now, number 2, we all know that the average human only needs 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of lean body mass. That's it. End of story. This is validated. It's peer-reviewed, and a bunch of super skinny, unhealthy scientists have co-signed this. Therefore, that's what I'm hanging my hat on. Now, all of a sudden, you come out and you're talking about a gram of protein per pound, 2 grams, maybe even per pound. Correct me if I'm wrong. What is the disparity here between what legitimate scientists are saying and then, what Dr. Galpin and Dr. Helms and Dr. Schoenfeld are walking around talking about? I don't know about those dudes. The unhealthy, skinny, sickly pencil necks, that's where I'm hanging my hat.
Well, those last couple of guys you mentioned they're fakes. They're frauds, 100%. No question about it. Eric Helms, I know personally, is a fraud. Brad Schoenfeld is maybe the worst of all of them. Let's take their shirt off. Take it compared to mine. Let's see who looks better. I promise you that. So whatever they say, if it disagrees with me, it's wrong. If it agrees with me, it's probably right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I suppose you might be able to gain some muscle on eating 25 grams of protein a day, assuming that's only spinach-based protein.
The America's toughest trainer, Jillian Michaels, said nearly the same thing recently, though, by the way. And she's on TV, Dr. Galpin. You or I, we do not have our own TV shows. Therefore, and I've never had a morbidly obese person sprint until they fell on their face on a treadmill. That means she's probably correct.
Probably has more Instagram followers than us two combined, I would assume.
I'm sure. I don't look that good in a tank top, to be fair.
In anything, really.
No, that's true.
So, yeah. Okay, piecing that together a little bit. Man, that's funny because when I made this video, I put it up there, somebody was like, blah, 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 all these questions about, where's all the dogma? And about how like more is always better and you scientists need to get it figured out or something. Like that's not true. And I'm like, who said that? Who said anything about what part of the slide when I said the range is 2 grams to kilogram body mass? And some studies have even shown 3 to 4 as being something you could do. Like how in that was that interpreted as, more was better here. So what clearly has to happen is if you want to maximize muscle growth, you have got to hit a certain threshold. So there has to be a total amount of amino acids pool and then specifically enough of one amino acid called leucine. And leucine is, if you're unfamiliar with that one, it's the primary amino acid you get when you buy BCAAs, so branched chain amino acids. And we can circle back to BCAAs, as I'm sure you've just got a complete wrong take on that.
Oh, we're going to. Dude in the gym takes them all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. He looks worse every time I see him, but he buys them.
Right. So as long as you get enough of the protein, it's theoretically fine. But where that number tends to shake is about 1 gram per kilogram. And having said that, if you do 1 gram per pound body weight, if you do less than that, you can still grow muscle. Can you grow it at the optimal rate? Maybe if you're slightly below that number. But I know that if you get lower and lower and lower, your ability to grow muscle shrinks. Conversely, if you go higher, it doesn't go down. So to me, if the goal is to truly grow muscle and you're trying to grow the most you can, notice I didn't say, this is something you take, like this is what everyone should do for just general purposes or for fat loss. Or the goal of that was maximizing muscle gain. So now that we're clear what the goal here is, why would you do anything that has potential downside when going up in protein only has potential upside and no consequence really whatsoever to this particular goal? So being at that minimum number of 2 kilograms per kilogram or 1 gram per pound, which is close to the same thing. And in fact, then finally, if you look at the more recent research from Joey Antonio's lab, they have gone some astronomically high numbers. And they're not seeing any problems whatsoever with that. So do you have to go 4 grams per kilogram? No, not at all. Is 3 grams better than 2 grams? Probably not. This is a range. If you want to live in there for other reasons, personal conflict, personal preference, whatever else you got going on, then that's fine. But you do have to have a minimum threshold. The last piece I will say is it is clear. Again, that threshold does exist. So more is not always better here. You will only activate muscle protein synthesis to the highest it can go. And that threshold is not super high. You don't have to get to 3 or 4 grams per kilogram to get to that threshold. But there's very little detriment. So Again, folks, like pay the fuck attention. That's what a range means. It means you could be in this range. It doesn't mean the bottom of the range is.
Whoa, language. This is not your classroom here, sir. This is the internet, and there are rules of decorum on social media. Just so you're aware, you might not be aware of that up in your ivory tower in your university, but
sorry, I'm down 5-0
on YouTube. In the comment section of YouTube, we treat each other with respect. Just so you're aware.
I'm sorry, I'm down a lot of points. I got feisty.
Now, to clear this up a little bit, what for the average person at home, we're going to say the average, 35-year-old individual watching plus or minus 10 years easily, who is training, who wants to gain muscle, they want to keep body fat at bay, what should be the approximate protein intake relative to total body mass? And let's say they're walking around about 15% body fat or so. They want to get down to about 12. They want to add a little lean muscle tissue. They're not trying to shred out. They just want to, they want their wife to kind of look at them when they're getting in and out of the shower finally.
To stick with the gram per pound. It's an achievable number. It's not something that's going to be so hard that ruins your day to get to. I like to go a little bit higher than that. Ideally, so if you're 185 pounds and you want to get to 200 pounds, then go to 200 grams. That's a pretty decent starting place, right? So go to the number you want to get to. If you're up and down, the fact of the matter is most of you don't know how to measure your protein to within probably 20 grams total throughout the day anyways. Whoa. So don't be too precise about the number you get because you don't know what you're getting anyways. So shoot for that thing. If you want to go higher, you're going to have no problem. So I always say err on the side of too much. Err on the side of 25 grams extra. Don't go 25 grams less.
You bring up an important part that wasn't initially on my list here, but now you're taking shots at the audience that they don't know how to count.
Oh, so now we're changing the rules halfway through the fight. I see how you play.
That's the only way to win a fight, my man.
Oh, I see.
This is Jersey over here, homie. This ain't California, where we send each other notes. Here we shank each other in the kidneys. Now, that being said, macro counting, and you make a great point here. I got to give you, all right, round two to Galpin here, because you actually made a great point that most people do not accurately count their total intake anyway, nor do they count their total expenditure. So the concept of calorie counting, macro counting, in many ways, it is a fleeting effort at best. It's a challenge. And you're talking more general estimates here. And I hate to say this, but I actually agree with you on this. Can you just go a little further on the constraints of the macro world, the macro counting, the CICO world, compared to what you're telling the audience right now to build this healthful lifestyle, as it sounds to me?
I have an hour or so long video that you can go where I break down all the components of calories in, calories out. It's all aspects of it. So the very short version of that is every layer of calorie counting is wrong for the most part. So the amount of calories on a food label can be off by a very large percent, 10 or 15% or more. Unless you're weighing and measuring and paying attention to both weight and volume and density, your numbers could be off. The numbers then you plug into MyFitnessPal oftentimes are wrong by 10 or 15%. So by the end of the day, you could just be completely off on your numbers for a whole host of reasons. Yeah, you'll have to scroll down. Maybe it's in the 55-minute section. So if you go down to one of those 55 ones, you'll get it there.
Wow, look at Dr. Andy Galpin.
There you go, number 7.
Amazing YouTube page, dropping all sorts of science. And once again, you want to talk about an overachiever here, Galpin. Like, you can't do everything at a high level, buddy. And it seems like you're really throwing a lot of smoke and mirrors at us and pretending like you're just, out of the goodness of your heart, you're supplying us with all this amazing content that's peer reviewed, it's evidence-based, it's scientifically validated, it's been battle tested, proven effective in the real world. What's your end game here? That's what I want to know. What is your end game here with all this content? What are you doing here right now?
My end game is for you to click on number 7 right there, because that's what I'm talking about.
Fair enough.
Yeah, there you go. So if you want to see all the gist about how it really works and all the factors that go into counting calories, there you go.
Okay.
So to save you from your own terrible question, let's go on to the next one because I think we covered that. You can watch that.
All right. Now, you had mentioned leucine, and as I believe that is a province in Canada. Is that correct? You're trying to confuse us right now. So tell me a little more about what this leucine is, and then I am going to come back with the need of BCAAs and how we've proven it in 2021 that BCAAs. Well, tell us about leucine. Where is leucine? Do I take a plane to get there? What is that?
Not surprised. You've been punched in the head a lot.
Don't bring my wife into this.
She told me the same thing.
True.
Yeah. So you have most of your proteins would be considered to be made of the building blocks are made of amino acids, right? So you've got effectively 20, depending on how you want to split the dice here. Half of those or so you can make, your body can make those. The other half you cannot make. And so the ones you cannot make, you have to consume in your diet. And so we call those essential amino acids. So leucine is one of those essential amino acids, and it is specifically marked in the activation of muscle growth. So when leucine is consumed, it goes into the muscle cell, and that kicks off the cascade of gene expression and protein synthesis, if you will. So it's a fancy way of saying that amino acid is directly linked in activation of muscle growth. And we know that if that is not around sufficient levels, then you will not grow enough muscle. And conversely, once that thing is peaked at its threshold, then you can add whatever else you'd like to the conversation. And it's not going to change the amount of muscle you got. So you want to look for something in the neighborhood of, if we go back to your original question, if you're at 1 gram per pound of body weight of total protein, yep. If you're eating high quality proteins, and by that, I mean, high quality protein is one that has all those essential amino acids in it. Okay, so it consumes all the ones. You could take like a blade of grass, and grass technically has protein in it, but it doesn't have all of those essential amino acids. So we'd call that an incomplete protein. Broccoli, same thing. Yes, they're technically protein sources, but they're not complete protein sources. And then to follow up on that, there are complete protein sources, but those are that are poor in leucine content. And so a complete protein that has a lot of leucine compared to a complete protein that has a small amount of leucine, even though it still technically is a complete protein, well, the one with the low amount of leucine will be a worse choice per calorie to stimulate and maximize muscle growth. And so you need to consume something, as best we understand it now, in the neighborhood of about 0.4 grams of high quality protein per meal. So what that translates to is about 20 to 50 grams total of protein per feeding. Some will argue less than 20, but I don't think that's true at all. I think the number's closer to 25 or so grams. So if you take that 0.4 grams of high quality protein, what that gets you is somewhere in the neighborhood of 700 to 3,000 milligrams of leucine. And so to back that whole picture up, you eat 50 grams of protein. In that protein will get you, say, 3 grams. So 3 grams of the 50 grams will be from leucine, as a rough example, right? If you got, say you eat meat, in this example, it's going to be very high in leucine content. So it's not necessarily the protein number that matters. It's more specifically the leucine number that matters. And so this is why if I said put you on a diet of 100 grams of protein a day of broccoli and compare that to 100 grams of ground beef, that you would have to eat a lot more of the broccoli because it would have such a low leucine content. And so what the research is generally going to suggest is if you don't hit the leucine threshold, that's what we call this thing, then you're not going to maximize muscle growth. Having said that, if you can exceed the threshold, then the location of the food items or the type of food items don't matter as much. And so what I mean is, if you have a cap on calories you can consume throughout the day, say I don't want to consume over 2,500 or something, and 1,000 of those come from low quality protein sources, you might not get enough total protein, you might not get enough amino acids, and you might not get to your leucine threshold. So therefore you're leaving some growth on the table. Having said that, if you're willing to eat an extra 500 or 1,000 calories, then the low quality sources won't matter as much because you're going to be having so much more of them. You will eventually get to that same number of total leucine. And once that's hit, it doesn't seem like any additional leucine matters. So to answer the question that I know you're about to ask, because you're a dumb meathead, is BCAAs are then almost always superfluous as a supplement, because unless you're not meeting your total protein needs, then the BCAAs are not going to do anything, because that system is already maximized. So taking extra leucine doesn't matter if you have enough leucine in the system. And so in general, if you're having like, I guess, cancer treatment or something, or some other reason where you're extremely low in calories, and no, like intermittent fasting is not the case for that. I mean, like you're in a space flight or something like that. In those cases, BCAAs might be something you could turn to. But on almost every other situation, eating whole, complete proteins is a far better answer. In fact, most people take BCAAs because they come with stimulants. It's the stimulant thing, or it's the flavor. It's like, oh, I love cherry. Like, that's why. No, it's not a reason to take a supplement. So I'm not entirely against BCAAs in some very select circumstances, but I don't go out of my way to get them, and I generally discourage them. It's just not needed. So eat real food. If you eat a variety of foods and you eat enough total protein throughout the day of high quality, it doesn't have to be animal only source. There, you have options. Then you'll be fine. So if you're at a tight or low caloric intake, the protein source matters a lot. If you have excessive calories to work with, then the protein source matters probably less.
So you're saying that high net nutrient foods are actually superior to synthetic processed toxic chemicals that are artificially flavored and colored and usually conflated with very shaky science just in order to sell people a product. Is that what you're saying right now?
Mike, go back and listen. I did not say those words.
Because that's what but oddly, that's all I ever hear anytime I hear anyone talk. I look at it like that. What are they?
If there's anybody listening out there, can you please, I don't know if you can post or comment on this, but is that what I said? I don't think I said that at all. I think that's
what I heard, and that's what I'm going with, and that's what I will push the narrative into. I'm going to call George.
Now, look, I specifically said multiple times whole food is a much better option than supplements, but I didn't say anything close to what you just summarized. So
that is interesting. It's almost as if supplement manufacturers know this and they market completely opposite to what the facts are. For some odd reason, it's as if people think they just want to make money. It's like
that doesn't sound like something a company would do, Mike. I don't know. Like what?
That cannot be true. Now,
no.
You also say that the meal, you're saying 0.4 grams per kilogram of body weight in an individual feeding spread multiple times throughout the day. But we all know that we can only eat one meal a day and we can have all the amazing benefits. We can get super jacked, super lean, probably live to be 200 years old. We will never get sick, never have disease. And we can still compete at world-class levels consistently. And that's probably even like a 4-day fast or a water fast or the death fast. That's probably better to what you're saying. There's YouTubers right now that are telling us OMAD is the way to go, or the 4-day water fast is the way to go. And you're saying something that's like completely crazy, that we should be eating high quality food spaced evenly throughout the day to optimize net nutrient intake. What is it, Galpin?
I think I can solve this issue here. What do you think your body composition, what body fat are you at right now? 13, 14%?
2 last I checked. I'll say 11.5, but 11.2, I'm going to stand on that one. But
okay. Well, I checked yesterday mine and I was 11.1. So I clearly know more about this than you.
True.
So
well, how big is your shoe size?
My shoe size? Here's the benefit. Here's the best part. It's whatever I want it to be that day.
That's hard to argue with, actually.
Levels, Mike. Levels.
That is a fair point. All right.
So my point being here, the literature would suggest you are probably, I'll put it this way, eating 6 times a day doesn't look like it's any more superior to 3 times a day, physiologically. Now, compared to 1 time a day, we're still waiting on those to come back. But if you think about this from a real life perspective, it's very difficult to get the number of protein in a single or 2 feedings. And so typically people are going to have an easier time splitting that 3 up even into 5 or 6. So from a practical perspective, most people will be able to hit their number more frequently by splitting it up, but it doesn't seem to be physiologically required to do 6 meals over 3 or whatever the case may be. So we have some more research coming out in that field soon. And I would say that the research is tending to look like spreading it out is more advantageous, but it's not quite there yet. So it's not scientifically like 100%. It's, this is 50% better. This is 80%. Right now, most likely for practical reasons, spreading it out is the better option to keep you having success more often. And 2, the research is hedging towards looking like more frequent is better. But some of that is TBD. So we have run some trials in our lab with intermittent fasting on maximizing muscle growth. And I can't share those yet because they're not wrapped up, but I don't know the data yet either. It's blinded to me. So I won't know until that whole thing is over. But we're interested in that question as well. So right now, I don't see any advantage to eating once per day outside of maybe like if you're an ER doctor and you just literally get 1 break per day to eat or something weird like that. But again, if this is all in the context of trying to maximize muscle growth, it will not give you any advantage. It has potential disadvantage because you probably can't execute it. I don't know what you feel like eating 180 grams of protein in one sitting. That must feel just amazing, like terrible. So potential downside, maybe worse, absolutely not better. So why risk it unless there's like a really strong weird thing that happened to you one day or something. So as a strategy though, for most people to be most effective, I can't see how you could support that.
Now let's step away from science for a minute. And let's just actually sit here, 2 dudes who walk into gyms and move some weight around. Now, of all the dudes and gals, the strongest of them and the leanest of them eat approximately more or less often.
More
often. Can we then take that, trying not to be biased, and infer that more is likely more advantageous to building muscle? When we're talking about building muscle, we're talking about not just going through life without dying. We're talking about building muscle above what the average non-weight trained, non-resistance trained individual would. So Doesn't it seem that multiple feedings is likely more beneficial without yourself and Helms and Schoenfeld and the others kind of validating? I mean, what we've known for the last 120 some odd years, I got to say, sorry, with you and your lab. I mean, I caught the humble brag, by the way, but is that even necessary, Dr. Galpin?
So I'll make it easier for you to understand. So I'll slow down.
You better slow it way down. You better actually get your baby in here to explain this to me so I can understand truly what is being said, but I will do my best. Let me sit.
Well, I don't know if you heard the baby in the background, but the 11-month-old is hitting his head on the table because he's like, God damn it, these are so stupid questions from him. How does Dolce not got this figured out? That's if you've heard him crying, that's why.
Every time he hears my voice, that's all I hear is tears in the background.
I mean, geez, I don't blame him. I'll put it this way. Maximizing muscle growth, we keep saying this is the context of the conversation. If you want to look at the people who are really good at this and who have had the most success with this, you're going to find by far the majority of them eat many meals a day. Okay. Now, evidence-based is a 3-pillar step, right? So evidence-based, one part is science and research. One part is practical, your personal experience. What have you felt? What have you tried? And then one part is what do the experts in the area say? So right now, the experts, almost all in the area, would say more frequent feeding is better, right? And again, you might find a few people who've succeeded in bodybuilding eating once or twice a day, but the vast majority, for many, many decades, would say the opposite. So that is very clear and very strong. Doesn't mean it's always right, but that's a notch. You look at your own personal experience. I can't imagine feeling well at all trying to eat the numbers I would need to eat. But that's up for you to decide. Only you can decide your own personal experience. And then the research suggesting there's no advantage to eating less times. There's potential disadvantage. So you combine that with the other one, and I just see no reason to recommend anything besides you should probably try to feed more frequently. There can be an argument between, say, 3 or more. Fine. So if you want to stick to 3 or you want to do 4 or 5, I don't know if that matters per se. I know personally what I like, but the science wouldn't be so strong on that one. So, yeah, I mean, if you want to know what's most likely to work for most people, I would start with more frequent feedings.
And as an aside to that, many people, they overstep digestive efficiency. They just, right? And that's one of the parts of the CICO conversation that really frustrates me when I hear people just talk about calories in, calories out. That's it. They never actually stop to consider absorption. They never consider the digestive process and overwhelming the digestive system, nor of the systemic inflammation that is often induced through the highly processed foods, the bodybuilding foods, let's say, the supplements. I mean, I equate it to a medieval battle that's actually happening inside the digestive system. There's so many chemicals dumped in. There's so many competing agendas, let's say. So the concept of, if I can dump 3,200 calories into my gut in one meal, and mine is all through like whole foods, high quality foods. Again, I'm gonna have to agree with you here. High quality net nutrients. All of a sudden, man, that's like 6 plates of food. I can't get that in one meal or 2 meals without wanting to lay on the couch for 4 hours. So the more food tends to say, the more needs to actually be consumed, or the more feeding times, allowing for ample digestion, absorption, and the digestive process to take hold. Again, a lot of those out there in the YouTube world, bro, and I see lab coats and gym bros jumping over this concept, which is frustrating. So, doc or not doc, that's a conversation in and of itself. But digestive efficiency, so you said 3 meals, 6 meals, it really depends upon the individual, but also in many ways on how many calories they taking, how hard are they training, what type of foods are these highly digestible foods or not? Like all of this, there's a lot of context, and it's not just a macro template program that too often that seems to be the answer that a lot of people listening and following right now, they just follow the template. Some bro says it, or some doc says it. They download the template. They're off and running. They got their Pop-Tarts and their chicken breast, or their BCAAs, and it's that the best of both worlds. Man, that's not good either, from my opinion. But I mean, who am I?
Do you have an earpiece in, or someone's feeding you information? Because that was pretty solid.
Whoa,
that couldn't have been from you.
I gotta go take a nap for a minute. I gotta recharge. Like I forget what that movie was. It was like Old School, right? That's my moment right there. I'm gonna go collapse.
Solid, yeah, really good. I got nothing to add to that. It was solid.
Yeah, and that's, to be fair from it, that's a big part of really, we focus on the practicality of nutrition, not just, some peer-reviewed, sheet that comes through and everyone points to that. They grab one bullet point, they conflate it, they build a whole program around that.
Well, I could add some depth to that, actually, now that you brought it up. One thing you have to pay attention to with the research in this area is it lacks almost all what we call external validity. So if you control a lot of things in the lab, and so you put people in these artificial scenarios, then the nice part is, because you have extra control, you have more confidence saying that the thing that you did caused the outcome you saw. Really tight control. But because you did it that way, no one lives like that. And so you lack external validity. I mean, does that really apply the same when we put it in a real world context? Well, when you look at protein, muscle growth, and protein synthesis research, the overwhelming majority of it is not applicable. Meaning they do things like, you come into the laboratory after a 24-hour fast, or a 12-hour fast, and then you'll do your training session. Okay, well, immediately we have problems. Some people train fasted for hypertrophy, but very few do. Most people are fed already, right? Okay, so is that going to be the same? Then you're going to get something like what we call an amino acid infusion tracer. So you get something put into one of your arms, and you do something like you do leg extensions on one leg, but not the other. Which is now like, okay, you would never have a tracer in there. We wouldn't optimize the amount of amino acids going through your system. We're starting to lose applicability here. And then you wouldn't probably do like 3 sets of 10 of leg extensions only on one leg and nothing else. Like, that's not how it would look. And so does that really make a difference? Does it really hold true if we put a person in a normal context of training? And those are fair questions. And the last thing I'll add to this is I think the biggest downside of all this protein research, and in fact, because of this, some of the numbers that I've said in that video, they may change. They may be wrong. Some of the comments I've already said today could absolutely be wrong, because the major limitation applied to almost all this research is it happens with non-whole food items. So I'm only aware of, I think, 2 studies that have ever looked at this when they've given the participants actual food. It's almost always liquid protein by itself. And that's fine. I know a lot of people drink protein shakes, but the vast majority of people don't eat protein-only meals. So how does this look in the context of fat, fiber, carbohydrate, and other sources? This could totally change our answers. I mean, it's not unfeasible for everything here to I've said to, well, not everything, but a lot of what I've said to be wrong when you give people, like I said, different combinations. It doesn't matter if it's a combination of plant-based and animal-based proteins. Does that change the equation at all? Or does that distinction not matter at all? Like I said, if you do it with pancakes and eggs, or are we talking, again, plate of broccoli and some brown rice and some chicken breasts compared to a bunch of ground beef and blend it up in a smoothie? I mean, that's a fair question. And I actually think that it's not the same thing. I don't think taking, your amino acids in the form of an IV in your arm is going to have the exact same result as even drinking a protein shake. And that's certainly not going to have the same thing as getting down to the training session and cutting into, a ribeye and some brown rice. So that's just a big limitation of the current research.
And that is actually a great point, but it's not nearly as interesting as what you had said about beef. This episode is brought to you by Certified Piedmontese. Go to Piedmontese.com and feed your family the same way I feed mine. Right now, use promo code Dolce to save 25% on grass-fed, grass-finished beef with free delivery. That's Piedmontese.com.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, now, right? Big thanks to Piedmontese, by the way, Piedmontese.com. And of course, practicing what we preach here, grass-fed, grass-finished, American-raised beef delivered to your door. And get that Dolce promo code, save 25%. Now, Dr. Galpin.
Hold on, Piedmontese, well, where's my email? Come on now.
Wait a minute. Well, let me see what we can do. But I do not get a kickback for the use of the Piedmontese code. That's something I do want to be known. Use the code or don't use the code. I get no money for your use of the code. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, that is passed directly on to the user, and you get the free delivery with that $99 or more order. That's a smoking deal, and that is the only beef that we eat in our home, and that is 100% accurate, by the way.
First ethical thing I think I've ever heard you do.
Well, yeah, don't worry. I will find a way to blow that up, I'm sure, some way, somehow. You didn't see my keto program that I came out with? My exogenous ketone. That you didn't know? You're not aware of that yet? My whole keto scheme. Yep. It's because I didn't do it.
That's how you bought that house, huh? I see.
We need to come up with some sort of total keto thing, or some crappy synthetic toxic chemical quote sports supplement program. We'll conflate some new science that's going to support the need for the masses to go through it. We'll go on a couple popular podcasts. We'll get them talking about it, create some chatter. We'll pay some influencers to then post about it. We'll kind of, we'll schmooze. We'll go to Vegas or New York City. We'll schmooze a few of the writers to feed it into their stories. All of a sudden, within 3 months, bro, game over. We're going to sell the company to one of these big firms, and you and I are out.
I'm in. I am so in. Let's go.
Is that wrong? Is that wrong? Is that
no? I've been waiting for that phone call or that offer for 10 years now. What the hell? Why did it take so long?
What's funny is how true is that though? I mean, man, it's so sad. But anyway, that's a whole nother. We'll do another conversation on that.
You and I can name names. I guarantee that.
Fuck, man, we can name it. It's funny because there's a few out there, but because you know who they are. They know we know who they are. And when I speak, I don't name names just because I'm not that dude. I attack ideas. I don't attack people. And there's some people that deserve fucking to be attacked, by the way. But it's the ideas. It's the bullshit. And I've been out there for a while. I don't want to say I lost friendships as a result of it, but I can feel the air kind of chill when I walk around, and I don't fucking care because you're one of the dudes. Now, full transparency here. You're one of the dudes I respect because you tell the truth. You tell the truth, and that it's fucking rare in the health and fitness world. And you're kind of positioned in the academics, but also in pop culture fitness in many ways. And the ability for a lot of our peers here to keep their brands going by simply flipping keywords. Every 18 to 36 months, they become the new expert at something completely different from what they were 2-3 years ago. So either you were lying 2-3 years ago, bro, or you're a fucking idiot. Either way, I shouldn't be following your advice, right? And these are smart people too.
I'm going to bite my tongue now because if not, it's going to be a 2-hour show, but it's supposed to be 20 minutes. We're already double that right now. But
I want to keep your child away from you as much as possible. That I'm actually doing a service to their future. Now, I do have one last question, and this is probably the most important, and I do need to put on my hood here to answer this because we are going hood. Now, Dr. Andy Galpin, you fancy yourself as somewhat of a expert possibly with regards to music and hip-hop and rap. I will say, I have to ask you, in your opinion, and that is a sliding scale here of how much credibility we give your opinion, who is the greatest MC of the 90s? The 90s, limited to that decade only. Who would that be?
I need one clarification on the question.
Okay.
Is this mean somebody who started in the 90s or their best work was in the 90s?
Someone who was active in the 90s. They could have continued after the 90s. They could have been around in the 80s. They could have had hits in all three generations, and there are a few. But in the 90s, because that's where we came up, right? I'm kind of that was when we came up. And I think that's when music, specifically rap and hip hop, was at its pinnacle. In my opinion, I am biased though, but the 90s, who was it in your opinion?
It's not your opinion. You're not biased. The golden era is real. There's no question.
All right.
96 to prior to that was the golden era. My palms have been sweating all day thinking about this. I told you to text you. I was like, fuck, now I'm scared. Now I don't know what to hear. I've gone through this so many times in my head over the last 20 years. I will say it's down to two individuals, in my opinion, personally.
Don't say them yet. I'm going to write them down. Let's see. The two individuals.
Okay, and while you're writing, I'll say, and this is the reason why I asked the clarification, because I don't think necessarily these folks did their best work in the 90s, but the work they did in the 90s was still great.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
And the reason I'm going with the second place finisher of Rakim. So Rakim gets the second place vote, even though I think he is actually a better overall MC here. His best work was in the late 80s.
Okay.
Relative. His first two albums are just, his first one especially, this Paid in Full is just on the Mount Rushmore, if you will. The stuff in the 90s he did just wasn't as good as that. Still amazing. So if we're going to qualify to that. So the person that I think had a better run in the 90s, although this person also did his best work in the 1990s or 1980s, I still think the work that he did in the 90s eclipses anybody else, and that's KRS-One.
Okay.
So to me, he's he's one of the best MCs all time. Is he the most lyrical? No, he's close. Is he the most talented vocally? All these things? No. He's close on everything. Live performance, off the charts, out of this world. Ability to do different things musically, really unmatched. Impact, unmatched. So if you add up all the categories in totality that go into making somebody, in my opinion, a dope MC, nobody has as many points in as many areas than KRS-One for the 1990s. So for those reasons, that's my final answer. Best MC in the 1990s, KRS-One.
Unfortunately, I actually agree with you somehow. I don't know what's going on.
Some sort of magic here.
Yeah, I might have. It was the baby. The baby actually got to my heart, pulled at my heartstrings, and I've
been playing KRS-One at a super low volume this entire talk for 50 minutes, so he's just been pumped in your head.
That's what it was. Now I have two follow-up questions, and then we'll get out of here. It's going to be two questions, A or B. So Tupac or Biggie, Nas or Jay-Z?
Easy. Two of the easiest questions you've asked all day.
Yeah.
Notorious B.I.G., in my opinion, is one of the most overrated rappers of all time. Pac, easy. Tupac on that one. And I think
driving around Vegas, homie.
One of the other most overrated MCs of all time is Jay-Z.
Thank you. Agreed.
So Nas is just incredible. But you know what? He's nowhere near my top 10. Not for lack of talent, but because he didn't really have that many great albums.
No. It's funny.
I mean, Illmatic was just what it is, right? But after that, it was like, okay, and then it was just like...
Yeah. Nas... Man, Nas clearly has just amazing talent, right? More talented than Jay-Z, but Nas was never as commercial as Jay-Z was. And so, yeah, Jay-Z made money, give him that. I'm not a fan of Jay-Z at all. I turn his music off when it even comes on. Nas, I'll listen to some of his garbage even just out of respect, and it still moves me. Tupac, Biggie, I can actually debate that back and forth because of their impact on culture. Yeah. They found a chord in humanity somewhere, somehow, and I have to highlight that with regards to an MC. It's their ability to reach into someone's soul and move them, and those two gentlemen were able to do that more so than almost any other human who walked this planet. There's something special there, and then some, I mean, Biggie was more just like, kind of like driving around, bopping your head. Tupac, a lot deeper, in my opinion, more of a lyricist, but at the same time, they all fit. So I'll say Tupac over Biggie, and then definitely Nas over Jay-Z.
I think if you take Biggie and you say he's one of the top talents of all time, I would not argue there, but top producer, like in terms of like how much did he produce of high quality stuff, it's not that high. Most of his albums are terrible. Yeah. You have 3 or 4 or 5 just mega hits, and then just a whole bunch of Puff Daddy in the background yapping nonsense. We're terrible.
Yeah.
I actually even say, had he been with a different producer or manager or whatever you want to call Puffy, and not saying like you might have had 3 or 4 albums of just straight bangers, because there's no question he had the charisma and the comfort on the mic and the talent that he did. He just had so many terrible songs.
Yeah.
Anyways, good questions. I mean, the last 3 I think were really valuable here, questions-wise. The rest, I don't know, but that stuff was productive.
The rest was a freaking wash. The last 3 music questions, by far the best. Dr. Andy Galpin, I greatly, greatly appreciate you being here, of course. You are awesome, someone I look up to. I follow your work. You put so much great content out there, which is absolutely true. Everyone here definitely needs to go to your YouTube channel, subscribe to the channel. Literally any question anyone has that relates to health, fitness, science, they can probably find it on Galpin's channel, or at least the opening of the rabbit hole to start drilling down. Your 5-minute physio, I agree with Steffi Cohen. The 5-minute, the quick hits, which is great. Not that your longer versions aren't awesome, but man, it's 2021 and our attention span is so small. Mind control is real, my brother. I fell asleep 3 times while I was talking during this show, wondering what's happening in my world of IG. I got to scroll, baby. So that being said, you have great content, man. I want you to keep pumping it out. And I use that, often and constantly, clearly creating content here for our channel. So I appreciate you. Musical taste, I'm still a little bit on the fence about that, but hey, that's all right. Everyone needs to go to andygalpin.com. Check out your website. And of course, your Instagram page is awesome. Dr. Andy Galpin. You got anything new or cool coming up that people need to know about?
I don't think so, man. No, just the next time I come on here, I guess. That's it.
Well, I look forward to it. We're going to plan another battle tested here soon. I want to, we'll offline, we'll talk about it, but we're going to have some good conversations coming on. I think we're getting a little bit better at it. We know what the audience wants, and we got some good personalities who I think we can engage and have some fun. Because shit, man, I don't agree with most of what you say. I want to call your ass out. I'm sick of it, man. I'm sick of the BS. You and all your science, your humble brags, you and your lab. I get your happy family. Yep, that's nice, buddy. Sure. I'm not buying it.
Awesome.
Cool. All right, Galpin, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for being here. Everyone else, guys, thank you for following, for being a part of this. We appreciate you all. Until next time, boom.